The Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities was adopted on the 13th December 2006 at the United Nations headquarters in New York and was opened for signature on the 13th March 2007. It is the first comprehensive human rights convention to be opened for signature by regional integration organizations. The convention entered into force on the 3rd May 2008. It follows decades of work by the United Nations to change attitudes and approaches to people with disabilities. It takes to a new height the movement from viewing people with disabilities as objects of charity, medical treatment and social protection towards viewing people with disabilities as subjects with rights who are capable of claiming those rights and making decisions for their lives based on their free and informed consent, as well as being active members of society. The Convention is intended as a human rights instrument with an explicit social development dimension. It adopts a categorization of people with disabilities and reaffirms that all people with all types of disabilities must enjoy all human rights and fundamental freedoms. It clarifies and qualifies how all categories of rights apply to people with disabilities and identifies areas where adaptations have to be made for these people to effectively exercise their rights and areas where their rights have been violated and where also protection of rights must be reinforced. The Convention was negotiated during 8 sessions from 2002 to 2006, making it the fastest negotiated human rights treaty. During the Second World War, when many jobs were left vacant in the United States, adults with disabilities joined the workforce, showing their competencies until returning soldiers replaced them in the years following the war. Thankfully, during the 1960s and the 1970s, the civil rights movement began and created an even more favorable climate for people with disabilities to continue to enter and succeed in the workforce and beyond. When the inhuman treatment of people with disabilities in institutions in the United States was exposed, more civil rights and educational laws were passed that consequently changed and expanded such services for students and adults with disabilities. This led to the deinstitutionalization of people with disability and altered the way society viewed disabilities in general. Group homes became the norm rather than the exception, and more community integration came to be afforded to people with disabilities with settings that promote independent living. The Education for All Handicapped Children Act of 1975 introduced a piece of legislation that drastically improved the way students with disabilities were treated in school settings. Then, through the decades that followed, people's attitudes toward children and adults with disabilities have become more accepting. Today, legislation is continually replacing views with those that allow students of all ages and abilities to maximize their potential. Limitations may exist for those with disabilities, but many of the additional imposed anchors have been removed and replaced with not only life reservoirs to stay afloat, but also the opportunity for smooth and pleasurable sailing. Services now include recognizing students and those of all ages as individuals who have the same basic needs and desires. Equal treatment in schools, private and government facilities, and community activities eventually translates to students with disabilities succeeding in life. With positive educational and social experiences, people with different cognitive, physical, and social abilities and levels are primed to become happy and productive citizens and adults. Today, in Britain, disabled people are facing high costs just to live. In fact, they will be paid £570 a month. Disabled people spend an awful lot of money on taxes because the London Underground provides services that are inadequate at best and often simply unusable. But it's not just transport. If people aren't able to move around a lot, they spend more on heating their home. Profits count more than people in today's Britain. All these things make the disability charge function as a societal tax. The Extra Costs Commission brought representatives from industry and regulatory bodies together with people with disabilities to investigate the issue and produce a report. The Intouchables is a French comedy-drama film directed by Olivier Nakache and Eric Toledano. The protagonists are Francois Cluzet and Thomas Zé. This film talks about the story of a friendship between the two men, Philippe and Dries. Dries is a candidate and he wants to take care about Philippe. Despite being uninterested in the job and his lack of professional experience, Dries does well caring for Philippe, even if his methods are unconventional. He learns the extent of Philippe's disability and accompanies him in every moment of his life. Philippe discloses to Dries that he became disabled after a paragliding accident. Dries discovered that Philippe has a purely epistolary relationship with a woman called Eleanor, so he encourages him to meet her, but Philippe fears her reaction when she discovers his disability. But then, a meeting between them was organized. At certain point of the story, Dries' family needs his support, so he returns to his urban projects, joining his friends and manages to help his younger cousin. But Philip is very unhappy. His morale is very low, and he stops taking care of himself. The film ends with shots of the protagonists reminiscent of the paragliding scene earlier in the film. The closing caption states how the men remain close friends to this day, even with Philip's disability.